Hi, this is Dave Corsi with the Liberty Action Network. We are here today with Dr. Alieta Eck. Dr. Eck is running in the Republican primary for the U.S. Senate race. The primary will be on August 13th. Dr. Eck, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
As a side note, I would like to mention we have invited the other candidates to be a part of our program. Unfortunately, we hadn't heard from them, but Dr. Eck was gracious enough to appear, so we thank you for that. What prompted you to decide to run for the Senate?
I was working here in the Zaara Health Center, which is a free clinic where we take care of the poor and the uninsured. And that day, one woman came in and told me that her hours were being cut. She's a teacher's aide. We're being cut from 37 to 29 and a half hours. I thought, wow, Obamacare is already hurting people. She was just so despondent that her pay was going to go down, and she was already on the edge trying to make ends meet, coming to our clinic because she couldn't afford health insurance. So that day was the day that Lautenberg had died, and I got a call from a board member of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, of which I was the president last year, and he urged me to run for this office. I'm not a politician. I'm not a career politician. I'm a physician, and I've never run for office before, which some people consider to be a liability, but I consider that to be a strength because I'm in the private sector. I know what's going on. I know what families are dealing with, and I believe that I could go and affect legislation in Congress that would really make a difference.
When this woman came into the clinic, was she told that it was directly because of Obamacare her hours were being
29
cut?
and a half, yeah. They said the law is changing.
Because
We're not
the law
going to be able
changed.
to offer you health insurance or pay a fine, and therefore we're cutting your hours.
So this is a prime example of how the government intervention affected a working mother from being able to provide
That's
for her
right.
family.
I'm sure that's not the
Right.
consequence that they were planning on,
Right.
but it was the unintended one that was beginning to come through.
The road to hell is paved with those good
right.
intentions. What are your thoughts on Obamacare?
I've studied it. As president of the AAPS, I really looked into it. We fought it. We didn't think it was a good idea because our goal is to preserve the private patient-physician relationship. And anytime the government or any third party gets in the middle, you get compromises, and people don't necessarily get what's in their own best interest. So Obamacare is the ultimate intrusion of the government into healthcare, and so that's why we fought it. And now, there's just so many reasons why it's a really terrible law that
Laundry
I
list.
can't enumerate them all. But
Well, I think our viewers should know that you've actually lived it. We're here at the Zaara Health Center. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
the Zaara Health Center, we started it 10 years ago, and we have been taking care of the poor and the uninsured, $300 and $400 a month. And we found that we can do it at a cost of only $13 per patient visit if everybody
$13.
volunteers. Yeah, everybody volunteers. And it's
Right.
real charity. That's what charity should be.
Right.
We shouldn't get paid for providing charity.
Right.
And we have support staff and nurses come, and it's a real positive environment that people just know we're volunteering, so they're grateful. And we help them. We help them in many ways other than just medicals. We hear their stories.
Right.
It's just an uplifting way to do charity.
So
We've
a
been doing it
true
for 10
win-win.
years. My husband and I each do 6 hours a week,
Right.
and it never gets old.
Right.
Because we know we're making a huge difference.
You really feel you're doing good.
Absolutely.
Real, like you said, real charity.
It's real charity.
I don't know. What's your thoughts on other issues such as tax reform?
Oh, tax reform. Our tax system is just so convoluted and complicated, and people have managed to lobby Congress to add all kinds of loopholes that make it favorable to them. So it seems like the middle class is just being hurt most by the
Right.
tax system. And the more I've studied it, the more I'm thinking that the fair tax makes a lot of sense. It rewards productivity, and it rewards people who are thrifty. It rewards all
Right.
the right things that
Right.
will make them more prosperous. And it's a national sales tax, has been studied for years by experts who have really worked on the concept. And I have a feeling what we could do then is get rid of the IRS, which has proven to be awfully intrusive on our
It's lately been in the news.
on our lot. Yeah, and it's a tool of the administration to
Right.
maybe silence people who might disagree with them. So perhaps eliminating that, and then all the cost of the tax preparation, the $350 billion, that it's a huge
Right.
amount that is we spend on tax preparation. Perhaps we could make April 15th be like any other day.
Right. Maybe make it a little more effective instead of spending $350 billion.
And get rid of the payroll taxes and the income tax, the whole thing, so
Absolutely.
people keep that whole paycheck.
One of the things you just mentioned that I think a lot of people aren't aware of, there's over 70,000 pages of tax code and tax law in this country that obviously not a person alive has ever read, and yet that is the law of the land. And that, I agree with you, I think that has been a great destructive feature
I think
of
it's the
our
reason why lots of jobs
it
have gone
hurts our
overseas.
economy and sets our kids up to be financial slaves. for
Right, and
this.
like the corporate tax too, is just, people think, well, that's good, the corporation's paying their big, rich, yeah, they send their jobs overseas, that's
Right.
what they do.
The other thing is when you talk about corporations, they really don't pay the tax. Ultimately, it has to come from an individual.
That's right.
So a lot of people aren't aware that they're the ones actually paying that tax.
It's not coming out of those executive salaries either.
Exactly. What about issues such as abortion? Where do you stand on abortion?
I'm
issue?
pro-life, I'm pro-life. I believe in the sanctity of human life from conception till natural death. And abortion was one thing that has been on my mind for years, as I've just seen some of the horrors and some of the sad stories of women who regret having done it. I mean, as being pro-life, I'm also very concerned about the end-of-life care. And I'm real concerned. When the government is paying for all health care, which is ultimately what the liberals would like to see when Obamacare fails.
Sure.
And that is going to be very dangerous for the elderly, because when the government's paying for it and runs out of money, what happens? They cut
Right.
and make age limits to certain treatments, and I worry about that.
I'm always nervous about that as well, where people who are disengaged from it have the right to make these kind of decisions.
right.
I always felt that's what Thomas Jefferson was saying to King George III in the Declaration of Independence, who died and made you God, when you have the right to tell us what to do.
There you are.
And to me, that was the real world about it. How about education? What are your thoughts on education?
Education. Something near and dear to my heart. I raised 5 children here in New Jersey. I was able to, fortunately, choose what school to bring them to, because each one is different. And actually, one of them went to public school, and one of them, the other 4, graduated from a Christian school. Each child is different.
Right.
And I'm the one that cares about them the most. I don't care what
You mean some
presidents
faceless
tell me.
bureaucrat in Trenton or Washington doesn't care more about
That's
your
right.
kids than you do?
I care. My husband and I care about them the most. Therefore, I think I should be able to decide. I think every parent ought to be able to decide where their kid goes to school. And especially when you find out what we're spending on the school systems and what I paid for a great education in a private
Right.
school. If we put the tuition in the child's backpack and just let him go
Right.
where the parents decided, what a wonderful world it would be.
Right. So
And how much
you're
we would
in
save.
favor of a school voucher type program?
Yes, I
School
believe,
choice.
and not just
Great.
specific government school choices, but even Catholic schools or even Christian schools or whatever the parents decide is going to be the best.
Okay. What about your thoughts on the economy and the fiscal responsibility or the irresponsibility of Congress in dealing with our situation?
You know, the more I study the Constitution, which I've been really studying it a lot as I've taken on this race, I look at the 10 amendments. I look at the 10th Amendment, and I see, you know, what has happened is we've added a huge federal bureaucracy onto a lot of things that just ought to be left with the states.
Right.
That's part of the reason why we're in the trouble we're in. I also believe that the entitlements that we've set up, in 1965, we started something that is just huge with Medicare and Medicaid.
Right.
And
Part of
course, the
Lyndon
Social
Johnson's
Security
Great
report.
Society.
Yeah, and he said we'd eliminate poverty in 7 years. Well, how'd that work out for us?
We've
So,
increased it.
and they said that Medicare would cost $9 billion by 1990. It cost $90 billion, and now it's $500 billion and rising. It's just a huge,
Right.
it's unrestrained because you've got this third party. It's the opposite of a free market.
Right.
It's a free for all. It's way too expensive, and the children aren't going to be able to pay the debt that we're incurring on them, which is really immoral.
Precisely. That's what I mentioned before about financial. We're literally putting our kids into financial slavery.
Medicaid is something that I really have studied because of our doing a free clinic.
Sure.
I've looked at the Medicaid system in New Jersey. We pay $13 billion on Medicaid in New Jersey. Our whole budget's $33 billion. That's a third.
You mean within the state budget?
Yeah.
$13 billion, not
Yeah.
federal money coming here.
$13 billion.
New Jersey
Well,
citizens.
no, half of it comes from the federal government, but last I heard,
Okay.
it's the same taxpayers that pay the federal taxes that bring it back.
True.
So it's $13 billion we're spending. And so
Very sad.
when I look at that and I'm wondering where is all that money going, I've really studied it. And teeny bit goes to pay doctors. It's paying lots and lots of administrators and lots of paperwork and lots of things that are probably, again, if people were buying it themselves, they wouldn't pay their own money for it.
That's one thing as a layperson I've always wondered about. It seems like a lot of the money that goes Medicare or into any healthcare program, whether it's a private insurance company, etc., doesn't really go for actual health care. It really goes for a bureaucratic system that's supposedly set up to take care of the healthcare problem.
Here's an example. We have loads and loads of durable goods that come here to the clinic that people no longer need, wheelchairs and commodes and crutches and lots of things like that. And why? It's like, if you had bought it yourself and you had it, you might say, well, maybe I can sell it on eBay.
Right.
But because it was free, the government just gave it to the people. They just think it's worthless, and they'll bring it out and maybe somebody can use it. But they didn't pay their own money for it.
Kind of like those hover round commercials, which I always kind of gets my blood boiling because they keep saying, and I didn't pay a thing for it.
Not a dime out of my pocket.
Right, not a dime. Well, it's coming out of somebody's pocket, that dime. And unfortunately, that is also a reason that will inflate the price. It's all supply and demand.
Absolutely.
I see that as a big problem as well. Any other topics you would like to bring up about your candidacy or anything you'd like the voters to know about?
Just that I'll be able to go to Congress and I would have no strings attached. I don't have these paid lobbyists that I'm going to have to pay back, and there's not something that's going to be in the back of my mind as I contemplate legislation. I'm coming from the real world. I know what affects families, and so the laws that I would be promoting would be laws that would be good for families. And I promise I won't change when I get to Congress.
Well, that's a promise that we hope the other 535 members there would have kept. Unfortunately, many of them...
They forget. I was invited down to the Senate twice to talk about health care, so I really know these issues. And
did you during those health care hearings, were you one of the folks involved in those?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Doctors? No, I don't think they got
Did they have testimony? Not the actual setting up of the law, but didn't they take testimony from doctors, I believe?
They
in some of the committees?
In 2004 I was down there, but not in the crafting of this healthcare law. They were really looking for...
I'm sorry, you started saying 2004.
In 2004 I was invited down to the Senate to talk about better ways to provide health care. And then in 2011 I went down to talk about ways to keep unnecessary visits out of the emergency room. Judging from my experience here at the Zaara Health Center. And so I gave, I thought, great advice, and it was pretty well ignored, so I need to go to the Senate to make it happen.
Exactly. If you wait for them, it's all a show for them. It's kind of like a dog and pony show where they make believe they're really there and really concerned. And
that's right.
All they're trying to do is put on a show to get themselves
reelected. There's very big
reelected.
egos down there, and maybe they need a woman's touch. And New Jersey has never had a woman senator, so I would like to be the first.
I think it would be a great start.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else you would like to add, or?
No, I guess that's it. The primary is August 13th, which is right around the corner. It's the Republican primary, so I would just urge everybody to come out and vote.
Well, thank you for being on, and we appreciate your time, and best of luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Again, this is Dave Corsi from the Liberty Action Network, and have a great day, and remember to go vote on August 13th. Thank you.